I did want to say a little bit about scams, because this is a big thing in the church and in the community. And did you hear about Queen Elizabeth taking 20 years off her life with this new shark oil cream that they developed? You see pictures of her? Oh, she looks really beautiful, about 45 years of age. Well, you know I'm joking. But this is the sort of sales talk you get all the time from people who have something magical to do. And we're being bombarded all the time by powders or pills or gizmos or gadgets to take 20 years off our life or help us to look better or whatever. And really the marketplace is like this puppet here. We're being manipulated every time we go to a store, every time we look at the TV and we see all these magical things that are, while you sleep you can lose 10 pounds, just, you know, the cellulite will dissolve, and you put this face cream on and it'll take away all your wrinkles, and this bottle of whatever, take this, you know, $65 for a bottle, and it'll give you so much energy. You'll think you're 15 again. And the lure of all of this is just too much for many people, and they just have to go out and buy the stuff. Noni juice, look at the list of things that noni juice can accomplish. It's just unbelievable. And of course it's just one of many. Bee pollen is another one that was popular. I don't know if it is here, but it's claimed to be the perfect food with hundreds of enzymes. Promotes health and healing. And look at the things that it can accomplish. Honeybee pollen slows down aging, improves your athletic ability, alleviates impotence, promotes weight loss, prevents infection and allergies, improves stamina, and alleviates many health problems. And then after you've had your breath taken away and you say, wow, then I have to read to you the next line. I'm sorry, but none of this has been scientifically proven. Now, with many herbal things, I have to add that you may feel better. You may experience that life is better for you. And I'm not going to come along and say, you're stupid. There's no data to prove it. You're just getting ripped off. If you're spending $30 a month on something which really doesn't harm you, but you have the illusion or you have the reality of feeling better, then do it, I guess. I'm not here to say don't do it, but for me I'd rather spend the $30 on mangoes or avocados, okay? But you know, if you want to buy a powder or pills or a liquid or whatever, it's your choice. But most of the things that are being promoted really don't amount to a hill of beans. Okay, they're just money-making schemes. Veggie crisps. This is interesting. Garden veggie crisps. What are they? They're mostly potato flour, potato starch, sunflower oil, and tomato. They have more salt than spinach or beet powder, and yet they're called veggie crisps. See the marketing? These are veggie crisps, and there's almost no veggies in them. And then we have Ambrotos. I don't know if you have this product in Australia. It's has certain sugars which the body can't make, and look at the list of things. If your ailment's not on there, then we'll add it, because it'll also take care of that. I mean, it's amazing. And you have people who will come to town, and they will bring 3 or 4 people, and they will have them give their anecdotal stories about how they were cured from the point of death. Western medicine couldn't help them, but I take my spoonful of Ambrotos every day, and I've been healed miraculously. How can you argue against these people? They are convinced that they were cured by this stuff. noni juice, ambrotos, whatever it is. Goji juice, you have that here? I mean, $90 for a bottle or whatever it is. What is it? Well, it comes from, usually these miraculous things always, they don't grow in my backyard. They always grow somewhere beyond northern Norway or the very tip of the Himalayas or somewhere where 99% of you will never ever get to go to check it out. It's interesting, that's the way they get marketed. It's always, you know, this primeval, this beautiful place, and it just, the soil is so fertile and the berries that grow there are just loaded with 50 times more than anywhere else. Now, goji juice, there's nothing wrong with it. It's made from goji berries. Red berries loaded with phytochemicals. But the problem I have with goji juice is that it gets people away from the supermarket into the bottle. And health comes in a bottle. And it doesn't. This is just an expression. I mean, not this is water, but if it's goji juice, the whole idea is this is some miracle food. There's no miracle food. There's no superfood. God didn't provide anyone food with any magical properties. We have to eat a variety of vegetables, a variety of fruits, a variety of grains to get all the stuff that we need. So I'm not here to knock goji juice. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's just it costs so much and it takes our focus away from eating normal household foods to some miraculous food from the other part of the world, which I think is not good. Here you have another one, Sensa, for dieting. You just sprinkle this on, and all it is starch, but it has a certain pleasant smell to it, and that makes you eat less. You know, and you pay, what does it say, $59 a month just to smell good food, which is really just starch crystals. All these gimmicks. But here's what they promote. This is what you look like before, and this is what you look like after. Well, any woman wants to look like this rather than this. You know, and if they're gullible, and there's too many gullible people around, they're going to say, well, this is what I need. It's all I have to have. And then you have this acai berry, this beautiful, luscious Brazilian palm fruit loaded with phytochemicals. It's good. Makes good juice, makes good slushy, makes good leather fruit, makes good whatever. But there's nothing magical about it. It's like blueberries and cherries and raspberries and all these other bright red, purple, blue fruits that have anthocyanins that are very powerful antioxidants, but they make all sorts of claims for it. You'll lose weight and it'll give you a cleansing. You'll eliminate all the toxins out of your body. You'll have so much energy. People will wonder, are you on a caffeine fix or what? And you know, you get all these promotions, the before and after. It's pathetic. I won't spend any more time on this, but the characteristics of the people who are out there selling stuff, their claims are always exaggerated, they distrust the physicians, they promise miraculous cures, and they always have something to sell at a high price, always. You can never get anything for 20 cents. It's always $200, more like, you know. So you have all these things out there. Mannatech was what I was trying to think of, the word. The Ambrotos is a Mannatech product. Maybe you've heard of Mannatech. It's a pyramid scale scheme thing for selling. Then you have vitamin C protecting you against common cold. I bet if I asked here, did a survey amongst, I'm sure at least a half of you would put your hand up and say, vitamin C prevented me from getting a cold last winter. And yet there's no data, no scientific peer-reviewed papers to show that. Does vitamin C help? Yes. It helps the cold be shorter and it diminishes the symptoms. But preventing the cold, no. They did a test. I don't know if I have it here. Well, that's what it tells. It doesn't prevent colds, but it reduces the severity, reduces the duration of cold. Yeah, this is the study here where at the National Institutes of Health, they gave people either a placebo or vitamin C, 3 grams. And they watched them over 3 different winters. And they found, here's the number of colds that a person got in the winter. No different. There's no difference here. Whether they took a placebo or vitamin C during the winter, and then when they got a cold, they took for therapy a placebo or vitamin C. No different. But look over here, this is the interesting thing. This is how long did the cold last, if they knew they were taking a dummy or if they knew they were taking the medication. Okay, here is vitamin C. They know, and if they know they're taking vitamin C, what happens to how long the cold lasts? Here they're taking vitamin C, and how long does it last? Here they're taking placebo, and how long does it last? Here they're taking placebo, and how long does it last? What do you see the picture developing there? If they know they're taking placebo or a dummy, what happens to the cold? A week, 8 days. If they know they're taking vitamin C, what then? Shorter. Even though the incidence wasn't any different. So what does this tell us? If you're taking echinacea for a cold and you believe it's going to work, guess what? It probably will. If you're taking garlic to your immune system and you want to be protected against getting the cold to be worse or whatever, and you believe it will, it probably will. Now, is that wrong? No, nothing wrong with that. If you believe in something and it does you good, it's good. As long as you don't have to go bankrupt buying the stuff, or if the stuff doesn't harm you. And most of the things all the things I've mentioned aren't going to hurt you. Now, we've got a whole lecture on herbs and spices that we don't have time to give, but things like turmeric, which some of you know about, and the rest of you should know about, is one of the most powerful spices you could ever use. It's a cancer preventive substance, it's an anti-inflammatory, and it's just a wonderful flavouring, seasoning thing. But most people don't know how good it is for them. Okay? St. John's wort can be used and it can help with depression, milder forms of depression. Okay? It works. There's clinical data that shows that it's worked. There are a lot of other herbs that don't work, but people still believe they do, and it helps them. That's fine. Okay, so whether the herb is clinically shown to work or it hasn't been shown to work, but you get benefit and you're not broke buying the stuff and there's no harm associated with it, then do it. Okay? So with the vitamin C, if you believe it's doing you some good, it's not going to hurt you. There's no toxic level. Well, you've got to go pretty high to get toxic levels of vitamin C. And it's not going to kill you financially. And if you believe it's going to help you, well, it probably will. And it does in terms of shortening the cold and diminishing the symptom. Okay, well, these are the things listed here of why people sell health-related things. They teach you that, oh, these will make you feel better. They'll make you look beautiful and younger. Come on now. You're with me, aren't you? I don't know anybody in this room that doesn't want to get older or look more beautiful. If you're not in the room, then there's the door, okay? Or losing weight, slowing down aging, enjoy a better sex life, or have more energy. Okay, there's something on that list that's attractive for you. In other words, everybody in society is influenced by one of the marketing techniques, and what we have to be is smart enough, educated enough to know what's real and what's tricky. We've talked about this. So how can consumers determine what's legit and what's phony? When you read something on the web, is it true or is it not true? Is it crazy or is it really based on good science? I'm not sure why this was in here, but some people are too rigid in their health reform. Their narrow ideas hurt the cause of health reform. It's probably just a reminder to tell us that We need to be balanced. When we're extreme, we're doing disjustice to the cause of God, because health is then associated with weirdos, bizarre people, accentuated, fanatics. And that does injustice to the health message. Because what did we say the health message is all about? Helping us to reveal the love of Jesus to our family and to our friends more fully. And if we're off on an extreme, if we're a fanatic, if we're walking around at a potluck trying to determine, does this have egg or cheese in it, we're going to hurt somebody, aren't we? There might be somebody there who's not at your level of food sensitivity, and you're going to turn them off. You may never see them again at church. Maybe it's the first time they came to church and they brought this dish that they spent all Friday working on, and you have the audacity to tell them it has something in it that you don't like. Not good. Not good at all. So we have to be balanced. So who's vulnerable? Those who are looking for cures, the older people, those who are wanting to lose weight, and people with conditions that normal Western medicine struggle with helping, like arthritis and allergies and so on. This is one of my favourite texts. It's a really good text. A simple man believes anything. A simple woman believes anything. A naive person is gullible. That's what it's saying, right? But a prudent person does what? Before they go into the health food store and before they take out their plastic and put it on the counter, they do a little research. They ask. They find out, is this stuff for real? Because we can waste a lot of money and maybe even hurt ourselves. So here's some red flags for you. They're in my textbook, those who got the one with the spiral thing. Recommendations that promise a quick fix. Took you 30 years to put on 20 kilos, but I can get rid of it in 30 days. Does that sound like sense? Took you 30 years to get into this situation, but you don't need 30 years to reverse it. We can do it in 30 days. That's a problem right there. Usually the recommendations are accompanied by an advertisement to sell a product. You know, most magazines have articles, and if you look across the page, the advertisement, well, look at that. I can't believe it. It's just the product I'm looking for because I just read about it here. That's how the advertising world works. Articles are written on health to position to sell the products. We have to be very careful. Claims that sound too good to be true. Well, exactly, that's what they are, too good to be true. The article is written sensationally. You get emails, big capital letters with exclamation marks, okay? Well, I often think Jesus loves you, and you don't have to scream it from the mountaintop, and you don't have to say it with 20,000 exclamation marks to make it true. It's true. It's just something that is true doesn't need to be underlined in red and screamed and, you know, do backflips and all the rest of it. And that's sometimes how we have to get people's attention when there's a lack of evidence. Then you have to do all this sensational stuff. And if you get emails like that about aspartame or canola oil or something, check it out. Because many times people send you these things and they don't even check. And then they look at this. This looks very exciting. And in the space of a few seconds, they press a button and all their inbox from coast to coast around the world in a split second, 300 suckers get the same stupid message that you just got and you thought was so exciting you wanted to share it. And then all these people look at it and get the same thing. They do exactly the same thing, and before you know it, within 30 minutes, millions of people are being saturated with something that has no substance to it. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in. Few people are spending the time to check anything out. because we live in a world where everything is instantly downloaded, instantly passed along, instantly followed, and nobody's passing it through cerebral tissue to see, does this make sense? Does this follow Adventist lifestyle principles? And I think we owe it to ourselves to do some checking out. The internet, 50% of people are using internet now for medical information. Is that good? Oh, we're divided here. When I ask these sort of questions in class, you trap students, but some of the wise ones have learnt to answer, it depends. It depends. Because sometimes it is very helpful. It's late Friday afternoon, I don't want to go to ER, I've sprained my ankle, I've forgotten exactly what to do. I go to the web and look up sprained ankle treatment, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, ice, raised my leg, all the things. Is it useful for internet for that? Of course. But if you go to internet and look at all this sensational hullabaloo and hanky-panky stuff, no, it's not so good. So it can be good, it may not be good. So it can empower us, or it can be unreliable. So what do we do? How do we protect ourselves? Well, we need to check out the information. We need to look out for About Us. Check out the website. Just because it says MD or PhD or RN or RD or something after a name, does that qualify a person that it's 100% truthful? Maybe not. And I'm a PhD and I'm an RD, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything people with those qualifications have means that it's safe and true and accurate. Sometimes there are charlatans out there who are more interested in this, and it's very easy to trick people. So we want to check out with what health professions say. Check out a second opinion. We do that with a major issue, don't we? If you get a health diagnosis or a sickness diagnosis you don't like, what do? Right? You go knock on someone else's door to get another opinion. We should do the same with stuff. Beware of pyramid schemes, okay? And, well, I don't have time to talk about those, but here's just an example. Ephedra, which has been banned and has been unbanned and so forth in the States, but ephedra is a substance that can kill you. It's unregulated, it's dangerous. It can cause rapid heartbeat, and when mixed with caffeine, which is a common weight loss thing, can be very dangerous. And here, 32 websites were identified that advertised ephedra products, and this is what we found. 41% failed to disclose potential adverse effects or contraindications. 34% contained incorrect or misleading statements. Now, how do you react to that? Bit scary, isn't it? Almost 50% didn't tell you there's problems and say, hey, be careful, don't go overboard with this. So you might ask, well, then do you have any recommendations for what's safe? Well, here are just 4 categories. Universities. Monash University, University of Melbourne. Okay, are they good universities? Yes. Would they be putting out garble, trash? Huh? I would hope that they are not on their professional web pages. So you find universities, I've listed some American ones, government agencies, doctors who have spent their life studying allergies and pediatric problems. They have their Australian Association of Pediatrics and what have you. They're not going to be deliberately, actively putting out trash. So these are some sites you can go to check out. Some credible clinics like Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic. You don't have to be in America to get onto these websites. These are 2 excellent websites, and then there are professional organisations. I've just listed here some of them. healthfinder.gov, mayoclinic.org, berkeleywellness.com, healthletter.tufts.edu, a very nice paper copy they put out, but you can also go to their website, medlineplus.gov, and then I snuck in my own website there at the bottom, vegetarian-nutrition.info, if you want to get some information about what we've talked today and you didn't get to get a book and it's the little handout Sibylla gave you wasn't enough, then you go to that website and you can download 100 articles. And if you don't tell me, I won't even know. And it's free. Okay? We've had, just to let you know that people in the world are seriously looking for information. We have had over 1.2 million hits on this website in the last 3 years. So there's serious people out there who are looking for plant-based nutrition and information. Now, why is it dangerous to be misled? Well, if you're sick and you're following something on the web and it's erroneous, what are you doing? You're delaying weeks and months before you can get proper health care to take care of the problem. So that's a problem. People might take mega doses of vitamins or minerals, or they might get involved with weight loss schemes that could be harmful. Okay? Or people get confused because some say this and some say that, and so, well, I've heard it said, well, scientists, you can't trust them. They don't know what they believe. They say one thing and then a year later they say oat bran's good for your cholesterol. A year later, well, it's not so good. Well, it's the media, it's not the scientists, it's the media that take little snippets and they promote certain things that they think people want to hear. And if you look back to the original studies and explain it all, it makes a lot of sense, or a lot more sense. Here are 4 reliable newsletters, and I don't know if these are all like $25, $30 a year. There may be a little extra to post them here, but there are probably some in Australia also that put out by leading universities. These are Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Berkeley and Tufts newsletters. Now, I'm not going to have time to today, but I wanted to go through 4 of the current fads, and I do want to talk about soy because I think this is a big issue that many of you are facing. We also could talk about low-carb diets, raw food and juicing, but let's look at soy. Well, soybean is loaded with iron and protein, isoflavones, phytosterols, etc. And the genistein, which is an isoflavone in soy, has been researched and it is known to do these things. It will lower your cholesterol, your bad cholesterol, it will prevent blood clots, it will help in the inhibition of proliferation in the artery wall, which is associated with atherosclerotic processes, and it improves dilation. So in other words, in terms of cardiovascular health, is it good or is it not good? It's good when you look at all these things. These are the phytochemicals in soy. And someone will say, well, what about soy protein isolate? That's not good because that's isolated. Well, the truth is that when we isolate the protein, we leave the carbohydrates behind, and it's the carbohydrates that cause the gas because we can't handle them. But the isoflavones that have all the good properties, they go with the protein. So when you have your soya milk or TVP or whatever, the isoflavones go with the protein. Okay, so just remember that. Here's a study with tofu and breast cancer risk. And if we put those who eat very little, if any, tofu at risk of 1, you can see that those who eat tofu more than 4 times a week have 30% reduction in breast cancer. Now, I would hope that some of you get excited about that because that's a regular use of tofu is going to lower your risk very significantly. If you were born outside of the US, you actually have 50%. So, you know, you're marked if you're born in the US. It's a disadvantage. Why is that? It has nothing to do with America. It has to do with what people are eating in Indonesia, in Philippines, away from, because these are Asian, these are, as you can see here, these are Asian women. So if they're born outside of the US, they were born in places that are growing up with tofu. And what we now know is that women, young ladies, teenagers who go through puberty and are using soy products have an additional protective effect against breast cancer later in life. So if you started eating tofu or soy products at the age of 40, you'll get protected against breast cancer, but it won't be as pronounced as if you start early. So, it's good for your children and grandchildren to know about what you're learning, because the benefits of healthy lifestyle, they don't kick in when you're starting to use a walking stick. They start kicking in early in life, and the benefits of vegetarian life, actually 30 years, 50 years of vegetarian, the effect is more pronounced than if you've been following only for 10 years. Well, here's soya milk and prostate cancer for men. You can see the rate once a day drops 20%, more than once a day it drops even more. Now these were only a few studies, and other studies have shown this red should be up here. It's like 30% decrease in risk of breast cancer. From doing what? How often? Yeah, that's pretty easy, isn't it? If the doctor came along and said to you, your chance of getting breast cancer or prostate cancer is reduced 30-40% by one serving of something a day, you would ask, what is that something, wouldn't you? Of course. Well, this is just the effect of soy on bone health. I don't know that I have time to go through it all, but it shows an improvement of bone mineral density. Now I wanted to quickly flip to this, because this is where you're assaulted. This is where you're attacked, okay? Because soy has become so popular, people have started, but what about? Okay, so this is it. This is the what about. These are the things, the bullets here. Do we really get protection against cardiovascular disease? It used to be said cholesterol is reduced 20%. Is it really true? The new studies don't show the same sort of picture. What is the real picture? Thyroid, soy hurts your thyroid, it causes male infertility, it increases your risk of breast cancer because the phytoestrogens in the soy are just very dangerous. Soy is not suitable for infants because these little children of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilograms, whatever, they're getting dumped with all of these isoflavones, these phytoestrogens. It's dangerous. They're going to really be affected mentally and physically. And too much soy causes you to lose your marbles a little bit. You get early dementia. And then, of course, you have allergy. These are all the attacks. These are all the things that are being bombarded. So the question is, really, what does the research say? Is this for real or what? Okay, when you look at the data here on cholesterol of isoflavones versus a placebo, you see no effect. Okay, no effect. And really, the answer to the story is this. A protein matrix appears to be necessary for the isoflavones to lower blood cholesterol. In other words, if you take isoflavones in a bottle, guess what? If you take them in the soya bean, yes, cholesterol is lowered. Why? It's because it's the matrix. And there's other things there. Saponins, phytosterols, these work together with the isoflavones. But if you just take the isoflavones in a bottle, sorry, you wasted your money. What's the effect of processing? Subjects given with elevated blood cholesterol levels were given 25 grams of protein from soya milk using either whole soya beans or isolated soy protein. Both milk gave a 5% reduction in the cholesterol. So what is the effect of processing? Soya bean versus the protein isolate. Does it make a difference? The answer is no, no difference. Now, there is a difference as to whether you get your soy in a liquid form or in a solid form. It's interesting. When you get it in a liquid form, it lowers your cholesterol more than in a solid form. So if you drink your soy protein versus eating it out of the oven in a muffin or a cake or entree or whatever, it's not going to have the same effect. That's what the research shows. And that's what we're saying here. Soy in a liquid form is more effective than in a dry baked form. And the other point is, soy lowers your cholesterol about 3 to 5%. We used to say 10%. The attacks saying that it doesn't work, doesn't lower cholesterol, the answer is, well, it's not as good as we used to think. When you look at meta-analyses of present studies, it's less effective, but yes, it is effective. And it also has an effect on blood pressure. New studies show that it reduces both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Thyroid, okay? This is the one area where soy does have a negative effect. And let's look at the big story, the total story. There is little evidence to suggest that soy adversely affects the thyroid function, and keep reading, in people who are healthy. Okay? If you're in good health, you don't have any thyroid problems, soy doesn't have any. The anti-thyroid compounds in soy are also found in broccoli, cabbage, and some other foods. Now, have you heard of that? No, because nobody's pushing cabbage. Is there a cabbage industry that's kind of sweeping us all off our feet? But is soy popular? Yes. And so we hear more about problems with soy. But let's take a look at the next paragraph.
Healthy men and women, not me.
Men and women, thank you. Hypothyroid patients don't need to avoid soy. They may need to ensure an adequate intake of iodine, usually from salt, when soy is consumed. Cabbage, millet, kale, Brussels sprouts also interfere with thyroid metabolism. Okay? Lots of foods do. It's not just soy. But if you're healthy, no problem. If you're taking medication, then there may be some adjustment that may need to be taken. Okay, now breast cancer. Here you see that the more isoflavones you take, the blue is low, the green is medium, and the red is high. The more isoflavones you take, what happens to your risk of breast cancer? Goes down. So is soy going to be a risk? Because the isoflavones are found in soy. Okay? Now, people will say, okay, I agree with that, but what about women who've already had breast cancer? They've had some breast tissue removed. Isn't the soy an estrogen? We call it phytoestrogen, but in reality it isn't. The isoflavones aren't phytoestrogens. They're really SERMs. They're selective estrogen receptive modulators. You won't remember that, but all I'm saying is on some estrogen receptors, they stimulate, like in bone, which is beneficial to help with bone calcium retention. In other tissue, like breast, they have the opposite effect. Estrogen stimulates breast tissue growth, but the isoflavones are not phytoestrogens, they're SERMs, and they actually act in the opposite way. So we have the best of both worlds. This is what the research shows. But in China, they did a study with 1,500 breast cancer patients. They followed them for 5-6 years. And what did they find? Here I've underlined it. Sorry. The researchers concluded what? Soy foods do not have an adverse effect on survival of breast cancer patients. In other words, do the women who've had breast cancer and continue eating soy, are they at any more risk of having recurring breast cancer? Is that a good question? Absolutely. And the answer is? These were big human studies, not rat studies, human studies that have been published recently. And there's another study here that says the same thing. And this just explains about the serums. Now what about male fertility? All these female-like estrogen compounds, and men are eating all this stuff, it's going to impact the sperm, and they're not going to be fertile. Now, I always ask people when we talk about this is, has anybody heard of China? Anybody heard of China? How many people are in China? And what do they eat? And can women have babies without male sperm? You know the direction I'm going. Doesn't it sound ridiculous that tofu could actually prevent reproductive process? Doesn't make any sense to me. But NIH has done studies and they have not shown a serious problem. And what about for infants? All this phytoestrogen-like stuff, does it have an adverse effect? The isoflavones appear to have a very low affinity for estrogen receptors. Babies that have been fed soy formula for 30 to 40 years, I mean, when did soy formulas come in? It was back in the 60s and 70s, right? So the babies that drank soya milk back then, how old are they? 40 and 50. Okay, so we've had a long time to study this. And pediatricians and research scientists have been studying this for a long time, and we can't find anything about kids raised on soy milk. Oh, their IQ's a little bit different, or they're stunted, or they don't do well at school. Hooey. It's all garbage. You can't tell any, you can't look at a classroom and say, oh, that person there, they had soy, because they're just quite not with it, or their IQ's. It's stupid. This has been around for decades, and nobody can come up with anything to connect the use of soy in childhood with adult behaviour. What about brain aging? The study came out of Hawaii. They were doing a cardiovascular experiment, and they were doing autopsies on Japanese Americans. Oh, and they happened to find that there was a correlation between brain size and use of tofu. And those who had eaten tofu more frequently, their brains had shrunk, supposedly. So the media got hold of this, and guess what they said? You can imagine what was said. I'm sure you heard it. So then scientists did experiments, and subsequently they have found in females who use tofu, their scores on mental acuity and the progression of dementia is far better than those who don't use soy. In other words, dementia is less and mental acuity is better. Okay? So people make all these things. We heard of cockatoos or parrots in New Zealand that were eating soy and dropping dead, and if it does that to parrots, imagine what it does to us. All this sort of stuff that's out there going around the globe, it's very hard to find any real documentation. So what am I saying in conclusion here? Soy is a highly nutritious plant protein. It's safe for infants and children. It's good for the environment when you think of what raising cattle does for the environment. It protects against cardiovascular diseases and cancers, breast, prostate cancer. Diminishes bone density losses. Very strong. This is probably the most secure thing that I can say about soy, of the three things: heart disease, cancer, and osteoporosis. The bone health has the strongest evidence for protection. It's the soy isoflavones that protect against bone mineral loss. It helps cardiovascular, it helps protect against cancer, but the bone is very strong. and it doesn't diminish male fertility or cognitive function.